Welcome to Out of the Box with Christine, the podcast for conscious entrepreneurs. Are you willing to step into your greatness? Are you ready to shine? Well, get ready, Truth Seeker. You're in for an amazing ride. And now, here's the host of the show, Christine Blasdale.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Out of the Box with Christine. I am your host, Christine Blasdale, and you, my friends, are in for a treat today because one of my dear friends on the planet, a master teacher of his own and voted #1 most powerful American healer and spiritual teacher, international best-selling author, motivational speaker, and creator of Awakening Dynamics consciousness technology. My dear, dear friend, Brent Michael Phillips, is joining us back on the show on Out of the Box to talk about consciousness, but more importantly, the steps that we can take so we don't get so frustrated in this world and dealing with all the crazy chaos that's going on and have some direction through the 3 generations of consciousness technology. This is an exciting show. Stay tuned. And Brent Michael Phillips, welcome back to Out of the Box.
Oh, thank you, Christine. I'm so excited to be here. This is great.
Well, we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, and that is getting over our past traumas, getting over the blocks that are holding us back. That's the best gift that we can give our family, our loved ones, and most importantly, ourselves. So for those people who don't know about you, and if they don't, we're going to put a link in the show notes so that they can find out more. Why don't you tell our listeners and our viewers on YouTube a little bit about how you developed this new technology, this consciousness technology, and your journey that took you there?
Well, you know, it's kind of funny. I'd be the first to admit I never thought I'd be doing anything like this. I never thought I'd be practicing energy healing, let alone teaching it or devoting my life to it. Because really, I'm a huge nerd. If you knew me growing up, I loved Dungeons and Dragons and Star Trek and Star Wars and all that stuff, right? Some of your listeners might have beat me up a little bit in high school. And so when it came time for me to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, it was actually pretty easy. I'm like, well, the only thing I'm really good at that I could get paid for is programming computers. So I always figured I'd spend my life as a software engineer. And it got off to a good start. I ended up at MIT in college, and that's where I discovered the internet. And I just fell in love with the internet. Back before we had Facebook and YouTube and all the social media spreading misinformation, we really thought the internet was a technology that would bring the world together, that would make us stronger. And none of this stuff was on our radar, right? So long story short, I ended up at grad school at MIT, and I ended up being part of the World Wide Web Consortium. And I'm very proud that I developed some of the software that sits at the underpinnings of the modern internet. And that was really cool. One thing I did in grad school was me and my lab mates, we sent the first ever live audio and video over the web in 1994.
Whoa.
So we were doing some really cool stuff.
Yes.
But I figured I could leave grad school being one of the world's leading internet experts, start an online game company and websites and make millions of dollars. And it got off to a good start. We did the first website for the launch of the Sony PlayStation in the summer of 1995. We did the website for Disneyland. We did the website for Nissan Motors. We're doing all this great stuff. And we even started an online game company. And back in the 90s, we created what today we call a metaverse. It was really the first of its kind. No one had done it before. So we were doing all this incredible things with technology. But the problem was I wanted to be successful more than anything. And I was willing to work as hard as I had to achieve my goals. And I destroyed my health. I was at the computer 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And within a couple of years, I started to have a lot of pain and tingling and numbness. And it got so bad that I couldn't even drive my car because holding the steering wheel was too painful. So I spent a couple of years in physical therapy with doctors, and they couldn't help me. And then it all came to a head in 1998 when I finally got in to see the top doctor at Curlin Job. And Curlin Job is the top physical therapy clinic in the Western United States. That's where all the professional athletes and Olympians go when they have a problem. And I really thought, hey, if anyone can solve my problem, it's this guy, right? Top doctor, the chief of Curlin Job. And long story short, I walked into his office. He had all my medical files in front of him. He looked at it for a couple minutes, looked up at me and said, well, I'm sorry, son. There's nothing I or any doctor can do for you. You're always going to be in pain and you'll never be able to work again. And I was so stunned, I don't think I could say anything. And he said something like, well, son, I want you to get used to it, so I'm going to put you on lifetime disability now. And led me out of his office. And his secretary actually said, oh, Mr. Phillips, please don't come back. We've canceled all your physical therapy appointments because we can't be wasting our limited resources on impossible cases. So long story short, I was put on permanent disability and sent home to die when I was 27 years old. And that was crushing. And when I told my best friend and business partner, I figured he'd be all, hey, Brent, I got your back. We'll get through this together. Nope. He said, sorry, well, if you can't work anymore, you're of no more use to us. So long story short, I got fired from my position, even though I was the founder of the company. He stole the website and video game company from me and sold it for $3 million.
Oh,
and
dang.
I got basically a kick in the ass out the door. And this was shattering, that I didn't expect this betrayal from my longtime best friend.
No.
And what I call the cherry on the hot fudge sundae is I also found out he was secretly dating the woman I was in love with.
Huh.
So there I was.
There you go.
Living with terrible chronic pain, being put on lifetime disability.
Heartbroken.
I had lost my multi-million-dollar company. I had a terrible heartbreak, and I had just been betrayed by my best friend. And that was a wipeout. I think understandably, I started drinking a lot, using drugs. I was depressed, even suicidal. But I had a friend of mine turn me on to alternative medicine. And he said, hey, Brent, don't worry about those idiot doctors. We can get you better. And so I spent 5 years living with my parents on disability, running around, doing all these treatments, trying to get better. And I mean, you name it, I tried it, right? I went to osteopaths and chiropractors, homeopaths. I did acupuncture. I took herbs. I did cleanses. I did all this positive thinking stuff. I had all these vibration machines and chi machines and all these things that were supposed to fix me, right? Well, long story short, none of it worked. All I did was create a gigantic credit card debt that I had no idea how I could ever pay off. And the end of that was in 2003, I agreed to have an experimental surgery that I found a doctor who thought he could cure me of all my pain and get me back to work. So I tried it. And long story short, when I woke up after the surgery, my right arm was paralyzed. I couldn't move it at all. And so that was really, in some sense, rock bottom. It was right after that my first wife left me. So now I was really in a heap of trouble, right? I couldn't work. I was in a lot of pain. But now, because my arm was paralyzed, it was dangerous for me to drive. I had trouble feeding myself, dressing, brushing my teeth, just doing simple things. And it was then I got turned on to this crazy healer lady named Terry. She had been an old friend of my Aunt Lauren. And Lauren kept calling me and saying, Brent, you should see Terry. You should see Terry. I'm like, yeah, whatever, right? I had done Reiki healing and pranic healing and different kinds of stuff like that. Nothing ever seemed to help.
You'd almost given up. You'd given up almost.
I'd pretty much given up. Yeah. But I said, okay, hey, Lauren, if I promise me, if I go see Terry, you'll leave me alone. And she was like, sure. So long story short, I made an appointment to see her. And she was like, oh, too bad about your arm. We can take care of that. And I'm like, yeah, right. And so long story short, she asked me a lot about what had happened in my childhood, what had happened in my first marriage, all the things that had happened with my best friend, the pain I'd been in, lots of beliefs about God and self-confidence. And it was all very interesting, but I'm kind of going, this is fine, lady, but I'm not here to talk about my feelings, right? I'm here because I'm in pain and I can't move my arm. And so she's showing me how to check the subconscious for blocks and doing this block clearing thing. It was cool, but honestly, I didn't think anything would happen, right? And so at the end of our session, she sat across the room from me, closed her eyes, went into a trance for a minute. And it was the craziest thing. I felt a little pop inside my elbow where my arm was frozen. It was like a little firecracker went off. It went crack. And I was like, whoa. And Terry opened her eyes and smiled and said, okay, dear, try your arm. And I did. And I was like, oh my God, I could move my arm again. And so that was the miracle that got me into this. And I remember asking her, I'm like, Terry, I don't know what just happened, but can you please teach me how to do this? And she was like, sure, be happy to. And so that was about 20 years ago now. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
I just got so many chills when you were talking about just that. And also just that moment when you were able to move your arm and how that must have made you feel.
It was incredible. I really didn't believe it at first, but I went from being in chronic pain, not being able to move my arm, to it literally instantly healed. Now, just to be clear and fair, not all my problems were solved in an hour, right?
Right.
I was still kind of a train wreck.
Right.
I had just come off a divorce. I was deep in debt. I still struggled with chronic pain. I hadn't worked in over 5 years, right? There were all these things, but that gave me hope. It showed me the first step on a path that would lead me to a much better life. And that's why I'm here, because I want to share this with people. I want others to be able to learn this and apply it for themselves.
And that's beautiful and then you went on a journey, right? Because of that technological brilliant mind of yours, that MIT enthusiasm for figuring things out. You went on a journey to learn about all the master teachers and to reverse engineer. In other words, to make it accessible to people, to make it accessible to thousands of people instead of just one-on-one, on showing them how to use this process. And you created your own technology to enhance it. And I just love this. Can you talk about the awakening dynamics and the
So what happened was this. The short version of the story is, after the first miracle with Terry, I spent a couple of years learning everything she had to teach. I learned how to clear subconscious blocks. I learned how to do healings. I learned all this cool stuff. But it wasn't quite enough. And so I didn't just stick to one teacher. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go find the best people in the world. So I sought out the master teachers, the best healers, the intuitives, the mystics, the gurus. And I ran around and tried to figure out everything they tried to teach. Because this is what I found. There are a lot of people out there who can do some pretty amazing things. There really are. But for most of them, it's some kind of natural talent or gift. They don't really understand what they're doing, and they can't teach others to do it the way they do. And that was a problem. So what I did was I decided to reverse engineer the masters. And it took me about 10 years and a lot of money, a lot of time. But little by little, I started to figure out little bits and pieces of what they were doing. And I put it all together. And the last piece of the puzzle was when I met my now late mentor, Carl, that I had learned all these different systems of healing and mind power, what we call now law of attraction. I had studied hypnosis and NLP and all these things, and it was all well and good, but there was always something missing. And when I started working with Carl, that was the missing piece, what we call the quantum field. That was what really made the biggest difference. That's what allowed me to triple my income in under a year. That's what allowed me to get past all the heartbreak and betrayal and go out and find love and start a family, long after I thought that ship had sailed. And so Awakening Dynamics has been quite a journey, because it started off as me just trying to imitate other teachers and masters. And that's okay, right? We've got to start somewhere. But what it's evolved into is really a synthesis of the best processes, the best techniques, the best teachings that are out there, really designed to skyrocket your consciousness. Because whatever our problems are, maybe it's money, maybe it's pain, maybe it's loneliness, maybe it's depression, whatever your issue is, one thing I found is there is no problem that can withstand higher consciousness. Higher consciousness can solve anything. So it may seem like, well, I'll show you how to clear subconscious blocks. I'll show you how to do healings. I'll show you how to manifest. I'll show you how to do all these things. That's not really what I'm doing. What I'm really doing is showing everyone how to elevate their own consciousness. Because if you do that, it's just a matter of time before the obstacles dissolve and the problems disappear.
Oh, I got more goosebumps. I did. No, and in this teaching, and I want to go over the three the three steps or the three generations of consciousness technology that we mentioned in the beginning, because I think this is really very important. You have people who are a bit familiar with the law of attraction, right? The term and, the secret and things like that, and how our thoughts and our beliefs impact our world. But can you walk us through those three different generations, those three phases of attaining higher consciousness? Because I think this is really important for people to understand that it's not just like reaching a, not like graduating, you get your tassel and your gown and you're done. But it's just really important, I think, that people understand the different steps. Or the different phases. Yeah.
I studied, dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds of different systems and processes and techniques. And what I found was all these things are really technology. They're not technology involving computer chips or electronics. They're technologies involving the mind, the human brain, consciousness. And we can group them into three primary categories. We start off with what I call the first generation of consciousness technology. And these are the things I'm sure you and your listeners are very familiar with. It's the law of attraction. It's the secret. It's think and grow rich, right? Focus on the positive, make a vision board, say your mantras, join a mastermind, and magically your life is supposed to be perfect. Well, I'm not saying those teachings are wrong, but I would say they're incomplete. That there's just so many obstacles there. That there was actually a scientific study done at a university in Canada about the law of attraction. And they found that over 99% of people using these conventional law of attraction teachings feel they got little or no benefit. So that's pretty bad, right? A 99% failure rate. And so anybody listening that has had those experiences, maybe you watched The Secret or went to a law of attraction weekend or joined a mastermind or a vision board or all that, and your life didn't magically become perfect, don't worry. You were just using old technology. And so the next step up on the food chain is the second generation of consciousness technology. And this is where it gets more interesting. The big difference is in the first generation, we're working almost entirely with the conscious mind. It's our thoughts, vision boards, mantras, hopping on the stage, shouting out that you're a millionaire. And for a lot of people, it's just not enough. Why? We need to involve the subconscious. So the hallmark of second gen technology here is there are processes for directly working with the subconscious. So some commonly known examples would be NLP, hypnosis, EFT, emotion code, healing codes, Psych-K, things like that. There's a whole bunch of different modalities, dozens, if not hundreds, that work on the basic idea that there's subconscious blocks inside of us, and we need a way to identify and clear those blocks to move forward in our lives. And this works a lot better. You'll see that the first generation technology, your success rate is about 1%. With the second generation, we do a lot better. Our success rate is more like 10, 15, maybe 20%. So that's much better, but it's still not that great, right? The other thing about the second generation technologies is this is where you start to see the medical miracles. By working with the subconscious, you start to see people instantly healing from cancer or diabetes or a broken bone healing overnight, things like that. So we know we're headed in the right direction. But here's the trouble, that if you look at 99.9% of the self-improvement processes out there, whether it be law of attraction or hypnosis or energy healing, here's the trouble, that you'll pick your typical law of attraction book, right? And you'll open it, it'll say something like, you are a powerful being and you can have whatever you want in your life, right? And you can live the life of your dreams. Okay, I want to say, stop for a moment. Can you please explain exactly what this you is that is a powerful being that can have what it wants? That's the question nobody asked. And this is the great gift I got from my late mentor, Carl. That my first teacher, Terry, was amazing in many ways. She was really a master of the second generation. She knew how to dig to the bottom of a belief stack, find the core beliefs holding someone back from healing their body, from finding love, from making money, and she was very good at it. But the trouble was, it left the ego intact. We're still thinking that we're these separate beings running around, struggling in the world to get what we want, right? And what I learned from my mentor was that's not true. And so the third generation technology involves awakening to the truth of the self. It's very spiritual. The second gen is very metaphysical, and they're both useful. One is not better than the other. It's like saying, what's more important to get around town? A pair of tennis shoes or a car? Well, you need both, right? Some places you want to drive, other places you want to walk. And for most places we go in life, you do both, right? I went to Starbucks earlier. I walked to my car, drove to Starbucks, walked in, got my coffee, walked back to my car, drove home, right? So we need both. And so the second generation is very metaphysical, but the third generation is very spiritual. It's about reconnecting to what my mentor called the quantum field. It's this field of life force, life energy that's all around us. It is the intelligence, the power that created the entire universe. And here's what happened to me. That back in the 90s, when my life flamed out, I did the typical positive thinking stuff, right? Now we call it law of attraction. Back in the 90s, we called it positive thinking. It's all the same stuff, right? I had a vision board on my wall. I said my mantras 108 times a day religiously. I went to masterminds. I put power words on my wall, all these things. It didn't do anything for me. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it wasn't enough for me, right? And I was so angry that I took all of it one day and threw it in the fireplace and burned it. I didn't just throw it in the trash, right? I'm like, no, screw this first generation. I didn't think that at the time. I'm like, this positive thinking is nonsense. It didn't help me at all.
Yeah.
And that was, and I was really frustrated. Then 5 years later, I met Terry and got introduced to the second gen. Started to work the subconscious, clear blocks, instant healings, right? Started to develop intuition, and that was great. That took me from being in pain with a paralyzed arm on disability to being able to start to work again, to being able to support myself. But here's the crazy thing. Christine, did you know that the last salary I made in the 90s as a software engineer was identical to the dollar of the salary I started taking when I first built my healing business? Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
It's identical. It wasn't intentional. That's just how it worked out. And so I was able to move ahead in my life. I was able to get past my divorce. I was able to start to get past being betrayed by my best friend. I was able to make money, but I wasn't thriving. I was still struggling. And I even went bankrupt because I got involved in an investment fraud. So that was another low point for me. And I met my late mentor, Carl, literally the day after I declared bankruptcy. And he introduced me to the quantum field.
Wow.
And that for me was the missing piece. That was where I stopped struggling to survive and started to really thrive. I was able to make enough money to buy a nice car, to take vacations, to go to the World Series. I was able to find love, start a family. And most importantly of all, I wasn't suffering so darn much. Life wasn't such a struggle. And so I just want to offer to the listeners, all these technologies have a place. That if you're brand new to this stuff, sure, maybe you watch The Secret or read some Tony Robbins, and that's a great place to start. But please don't stop there. Next, you need to learn how to work with the subconscious, how to clear blocks, do instant healings, develop your intuition. And then when you're really ready for your life to take off, then we introduce you to the quantum field. This is literally learning to get more life force and energy and consciousness back into your body. And it's crazy, but that raises your consciousness. So you put more consciousness into your body and your consciousness goes up.
You're so beautiful at expressing large, could be complicated concepts. And you just say it in such a beautiful way. The quantum field, and you had mentioned it earlier, that it's this force, energy that's all around us.
That's right.
I don't know why. Also, when you said that, Nikola Tesla came into my mind. But
my hero.
Yeah.
It was funny. My son asked me the other day, Daddy, if you could pick one person from history to sit and have dinner with, who would it be? I said, without a doubt, Nikola Tesla, number one.
Yeah, I felt his presence when you were talking about that, like almost like yes. Get that, yes, get that out. Can you talk about that, the quantum field and the energy that is around us? Because this is the biggest secret. This is the secret, I believe, that has been kept from people.
Yep.
And for whatever reasons, nefarious or not, it's been kept from people for all of humanity. But can you talk about that?
For most of the several thousand years? In fact, my late mentor, he was officially indoctrinated into the ancient mystery schools.
Oh, wow.
And he taught me these things, and he told me, Brent, I'm keeping you out of the schools as a formal matter, because when you're part of it, you have to abide by the rules and restrictions. And so he kept me out of it because he said, I want you to be able to go unfettered and teach this any way you want to anyone in the world. And so this quantum field technology has been around for thousands of years. This is what was taught in the inner sanctum of the temples in Egypt. This is what the holy men studied in India, those that went on to become the siddhas, the immortals. And back in the old days, you had to join one of these societies and take a vow of chastity, poverty, silence, obedience, and go scrub the toilets for 20 years before they'd even introduce you to it. I don't want to do that to people because I don't think we have 20 years to scrub toilets to get ready. We need this now. And what it comes down to is pretty simple. The success you'll have in life is determined by how much consciousness is in your body. It's really that simple. If you have a lot of consciousness in your body, you will make a lot of money. People will find you attractive and interesting. People will like you. We call it presence. We call it charisma. That there's this magical invisible field that, Christine, maybe you've worked with big celebrities. Do you ever notice that you could feel it when someone walks into the room?
Yes.
Even when you weren't looking at them?
Yes.
That's right. So a lot of very famous people have this. That's why they're so successful.
Michael Jackson had that.
Michael Jackson had it for sure.
And that's that energy too, that when they're there, I've heard it with the Beatles or with Michael Jackson, where they're in the present and people just burst out into emotional crying, right?
Yes. My mentor worked with Freddie Mercury. And back in the 70s, before they were huge, they were up and coming. And he knew how big he was going to be because he could see how Freddie was so full of life energy. He knew that he was going to have a gigantic career. And this is the incredible thing. My mentor worked with a lot of people in entertainment and in sports, turned a lot of writers who were struggling to survive. They win Oscars and Emmys, start making millions of dollars. And for me, I had one session with him and I started making more money than I ever had in my life. It was crazy. And it was really simple. I had pushed the consciousness out of my body. I had gotten into my head. I was living entirely from ego. And I needed this third gen tech to start to fill myself up again. Because the amount of money you make is simple. It's determined by how much consciousness you have. It's not about your education or how smart you are or where you live or any of that. It's about how much life force is in your body. And with this great technology, we can show people how to fix that. I can show you how to put back the life force where you pulled it out. And I think you'll be amazed at what happens in your life when you do this.
Well, that's a great way to go into, you have actually something you'd like to offer our listeners and our viewers to help them in that process, to help them get to that point and tap into the quantum field and that higher consciousness.
Yeah, absolutely.
You want to make the announcement? I'm so excited. I
want to offer everybody something that's free and also something that costs money. Okay. That anyone that wants to learn a little more about this, just go to my website at awakeningdynamics.com and you should see a big button right on the webpage to sign up for my next Healathon webinar. I do live webinars about 8 times a year where I walk people through how the technology works and do interactive exercises. Now, that's sort of an introduction and an experience, but that's not going to change your life on its own. For those that are serious, what I do is a interactive online 3-day weekend where I'm going to show you how to use and master all 7 of the sacred tools of higher dimensional living. And I'll let you know, we're not going to spend much time on the first gen stuff, right? We're not. You don't need to learn about the law of attraction and mind power, right? What we're going to teach you is state-of-the-art second-gen technology, so you can master identifying and clearing subconscious blocks, instant healings, intuitive readings, soul fiber retrieval, everything in just a few days. It will be faster, easier, more powerful than anything you've ever seen. But we're also going to introduce you to the third generation. We're going to start your own awakening process to learn how to break free from the prison of the ego. And we're going to show you how to use special meditations and movements, what are called somatic meditations, to literally reconnect your body and mind to that quantum field, to put more consciousness and life force back into you. And buckle your seatbelt, because you're going to get more transformation, more advancement in 3 days with me than you will in 20 years in other places. And the incredible things that happen from people when they do this, I mean, I could talk for hours, right? People are out of pain for the first time in years. They heal from diseases. They get a big promotion. They have a huge win with their investments. I could go on and on and on. It's really life-changing. And the additional bonus I want to give, and those of you may have seen me on TV, the radio, you'll know this is not something I normally offer on interviews. This is only for Christine and her audience, that anyone that wants to use the link you see below to register for the 3-day weekend, I'm going to also give you a free one-on-one private session with me.
Oh my gosh.
On top of everything else.
Wow.
So I'm going to give you this boost into the higher dimensions. You're going to get a 3-day live training. You're going to get a recording. You're going to get follow-on practice groups, a whole bunch of bonuses, and a one-on-one with me, because I want to get to know you. Because if you know Christine, I know you're cool, right?
Yes.
And I want to help you to lay a path forward that's going to be right for you. And I'm willing to do that. But again, just for Christine and her listeners, not for everybody.
So they have to click on the link in the show notes.
You have to use the link in the show notes.
Wow.
And you will get a free one-on-one private session with me.
Brent,
and of course, everything has a money-back guarantee. I don't know why you would want that, but just so you know, if you hate it, if you think it sucks, I'll give you all your money back. No problem.
That's amazing. Look, I got all teary because that's absolutely so generous. Because I love your time with me is absolutely precious. And whenever we do an interview, if it's on radio, if it's on podcast or anything, or anytime I'm with you, I leave feeling that life force and feeling so beautiful. And now it's the opportunity for people to actually have a one-on-one with you and not just watch you or listen to you, but actually meet you and talk to you That's a beautiful gift. That's absolutely beautiful. All right.
I'll clear some blocks on you, and I will, more importantly, start to reconnect you to this quantum field.
What a gift.
It's a pretty incredible thing. It's hard to put into words how powerful this is.
Oh, I know, my friend. I know. All right. So please, folks, if you're excited about this, click the link that's in the show notes and we'll get you set up. And this 3-day, when is this 3-day event?
I do them several times a year.
Oh, beautiful.
So the best thing is just go to my website. You should see a big link, right? That has the calendar and everything.
Yes. And
take it whenever you're available. And if it's not coming up right away, I'll even give you the recordings ahead of the event so you don't have to wait.
Brilliant.
So you get recordings, you get the live event, you get a free private session, as well as follow-ups and practice groups. Because I want you to succeed. I want everyone to get the knowledge, the tools, the support they need to really push their lives forward.
Thank you, Brent Michael Phillips. That's absolutely a beautiful gift. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining me again. You're welcome back on Out of the Box anytime. Anytime. You just email me, notify me, and say, I want to come back on the show. And you have the red carpet rolled out for you. I promise.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's awesome.
Brent Michael Phillips has been my guest this episode. And if you want more information, remember, especially about all those beautiful gifts that he was talking about, you can go to the link that's in the show notes and find out more information about Brent. Please. I know he's changed my life, and I'd love to have him change yours for the better. Brent Michael Phillips, thank you so much for being on Out of the Box with Christine. And I want to thank you, wonderful listeners and viewers on YouTube, for watching. Remember, you can share this episode. It's really easy to do. Share this episode. If you got goosebumps too, if this resonated with you, if you said, oh my gosh, this is what I've been wanting, share this with others. Don't just keep it to yourself. Share this with others on your social media if you can. If you want more information about the podcast, you can go to outoftheboxwithchristine.com. And if you want more information about me, you can go to christineblasdale.com. All those links will be in the show notes. And until next time, as I always say, remember to think outside of that damn box. Bye for now.